What's happening, guys, and welcome back to another Sunday Scan. We've had an action-packed week. I hope that everyone had a good week, a good trading week. We're going to cover a lot in Scan today. It's just going to be me on Scan, so we're going to recap some trades with MSTR. We're going to go over some sector and some momentum themes, and I'll actually share some strategies or at least some ways of thinking about those types of trades and those types of groupings or whatever you want to call them, the stocks that run together. So we'll go over some of that, and then I'll throw in a couple of main watches. It's a short week this week. We have Thanksgiving on Thursday, so the market will be closed, and then on Friday the market is open until 1 p.m. So it's like a half day there. So lots of eventful things coming up. Crypto's been going wild. We'll touch on that a little bit. But before we get into all of that, with the arrival of Thanksgiving, we have Black Friday deals and Cyber Monday deals coming up. So we are going to provide some of the best deals of the year. We haven't done a sale in a while, and this is really the time of year to, if you've been on the fence, if you've been waiting for prices to come down, for a reason to pull the trigger and to try a community, this is really it. Investors Underground has been on fire. And it's been incredible to see the progression of the community over the last, couple of years, couple of months especially. And, we have all types of traders in there now where it's, maybe it used to be more focused on just small caps or, one corner of the market. It has developed into all corners of the market. And so it's not just a place for a niche trading strategy. It's a place for every trading strategy now. We have people with large caps, small caps, mean reversion, trenders. We have crypto people in there. We have all these different styles basically coming together, and everyone works together and shares, from their angle to help people from another angle come together. And you pair all of that with all the preparation, with all the people contributing, with all the technology that Max has built out, and you really just have like a one-stop shop for basically anything that you could want in a trading service. And it's not just a chat room or a place where people are talking about the markets, but we have the tech to basically screen for anything that's moving. You can customize your own watch list. You can set up price alerts. We have the AI news scrapers. We have high a day, low a day, so many different features so that, it's basically a trading terminal with all the tools that you need built in. So definitely check out our Black Friday deals and our Cyber Monday deals that are coming up. And Sunday Scan viewers are going to have early access. And so you will be able to access these as soon as Sunday night. So make sure that you click those links and check out the best pricing of the year. And, we have people who have had, renewals from Black Friday deals in the past and just keep coming back, and people truly find value in the service for everything from our watch list to our midday scans or our midday study sessions. We have morning broadcasts, we have nightly watch lists, we just have live commentary and so many different things. We have tools to track options, activity, we have everything now. So if you've been on the fence, now is the time of year to really do that. So check out the Black Friday deals in the link below. And so let's get right into Scan now. Before I get going with this, I'll just give the disclaimer now that I'm not a financial advisor, and these are not buy or sell recommendations. All of this is for informational and educational purposes only. So MSTR, we've talked about this so many times over the last couple of months. You have, these big trades that set up. They're very options driven. They go parabolic. They have a theme, and then they have the big mean reversion trade. And we talk about it all the time, but MSTR is really just like the quintessential example of this playing out, and how we were able to prepare for that, and how we were able to basically set up the trade, map it out all beforehand, and then when it comes time to actually trade it or to do something with it, all that prep work is done, and you basically just have to show up and follow the plan. So MSTR, obviously this has been the top name or the go-to name in the crypto space. So as Bitcoin has been, approaching 100K per coin, this has been the most relative strong name, and this has been the one with all the option activity and with everything associated with it. So we've been talking about how on these run-ups, you have these huge themes. You have some kind of anchor, which is, the Bitcoin price, and then, driving it all up, or the ship taking off and dragging the anchor with it. So as crypto's had its moves higher, basically these stocks will run, they'll get overextended, then they'll have a big correction, especially around a big expiration date when the options start to decay and all those call hedges unwind. So we had just a bigger version of that same thing happen the week after. It already happened on a smaller scale, but it just happened again on this past Thursday on a very large scale. So basically, what we were looking for is we're looking for a trend in play, and we're looking for something to be speeding up from the prior trend. So if you were to draw, there's many different sub trends or mini trends within a larger trend. And if you were to draw a trend line on the top and the bottom, you can kind of see what is the variance of a stock during that trend. And then you start to have it speed up, and it'll form new trends with lower lows, or deeper dips and then higher highs. So much more range and variance once the trend starts to actually speed up. And so if you were to kind of draw, more trend lines just for like the new type of trend or the trend when it's really, rocking and in play, you can see that any kind of trend lines that you would have had on there, it would have blown past that. And that can be a good sign that a mean reversion trade is coming, as well as all the options positioning. And then you kind of get to a Thursday or Friday, and the ideal situation happened where you had a big gap up, blew out that 530 number. There was a huge amount of open interest in the options there. And then you had Citron basically say that they're, short the stock. And I don't think that was the main reason why the stock dropped, but I think it was ripe for that mean reversion trade. And that was like the first thing to possibly trigger some some profit taking and some selling and some, option unwind with that. So basically Thursday morning, it had a big gap up, blew out all those numbers. Then you had the news, and it started to get heavy. And we've talked about that when you have these big mean reversion trades, what you're looking for is, to follow the look, think, and feel. So you look for something that is going parabolic and it's kind of setting up for that mean reversion trade. You think about the structure behind it. You think about the options. You think about the trend lines. You think about what levels could it go to, what would be resistance, what would be a good entry. And then after that, you kind of feel the action. You have to make sure that it feels how it should. And when you have these big mean reversion trades, you want them to feel heavy. And why do they feel heavy? And what is that heaviness kind of coming from? And that is the unwinding of all the things in place that were driving it up. And so, for instance, on the way up, as you have the call buying, you have a perpetual bid, kind of propping it up as those call hedges roll higher. And you have, shorts covering, and you have all these different things that basically are stacking the bid with all these, people supporting it on the way up. And then once you get to a point where it has like a capitulation to the top or a big blowout, then, the shorts have already been blown out. You had the options already get blown out and everything. And so that, perma bid now switches to kind of like a perma offer where you have all those things working against it. And that is the kind of the process of a stock feeling heavy and feeling like that mean reversion trade is coming. And so we had a big flush down in the morning, and then it kind of stalled out. And part of that was because the options were just so inflated on the puts and the calls that, you basically had it stall throughout the day. And then you had it kind of unwind later on in the day as those IVs came down a little bit, that implied volatility. And then also another thing with MSTR, and you see this with a few stocks like MSTR and Tesla, is they have the leverage products that are all built around it. So you have ETFs that are, 2 times the volatility of MSTR, and those have to basically rebalance. And so a big reason why we saw that hard sell at the end of the day on Thursday was because all of those basically ETFs have to make sure that they're in balance, and that can involve selling huge amounts of MSTR to basically stay in line with what they're trying to do. So there's so many things came together with that. And all the tools in the room were, we got alerted as soon as Citron posted their short position. But before that, we already had, watch lists that were playing out, and, we were totally prepared for a trade like this. And then it was basically just showing up, and Nate, I think, was positioned in right at, a 530, 540 average or something like that short. And, he was anticipating a 420 to a 380 range, and it got down to, I think, 370 at the end of the day. So just just, everything kind of coming together. And I know a lot of people had great trades on this, and whether you traded it or not, it's besides the point. This is a pattern to recognize, and this is just an individual example of the pattern. So don't get stuck on, one ticker, one opportunity. Learn the strategy, learn the thought process, and in Investors Underground, that's exactly what we're doing, is we're coming together and we're sharing those things. So instead of just one person looking at the technicals, you have everyone coming together for the preparation, looking at all the things that were basically driving that flywheel higher. And then, something happens and those pieces start to fall apart and you have that big trade down. And then, in addition to that, then you have people who are great, dip buyers or, capitulation to the downside, positioning long, and we're able to catch moves back up. So there's just so much range and opportunity on these names that you really want to be in a place where you can capitalize on that. And Investors Underground is the place for that, without a doubt. Okay, and then the next stock that I want to touch on was this BKKT. So this was a breaking news trade. Trump media said that they wanted to possibly acquire this, or there was reports circulating around that. So we got the news right away, had the AI data scrapers, had the volume burst go off, and a lot of people were able to get in long on this. And then the stock, started halting up and everything. And it actually got up to a point where the stock's reaction would be well above anything that the company would actually be acquired for. And so it got into a situation where you basically would have like a take under at that point. And that just means that the stock is right now higher than the actual takeout would be. So all that excess basically will come back down as a mean reversion trade. And so after you had that big blowout and after you had to get past any, kind of reasonable purchase price, I know a lot of people in the room were waiting for that, failed follow through, wait for the resistance to basically hold. And then they were able to capture a lot of that mean reversion trade on the way down. So a great example of breaking news trade, catching the long, and then looking for like the fundamental kind of aspect of it and being able to fade that back down. The next name is SMCI. So we have talked about this name a lot on Scan. I mean, it's always one of the top leaders, either to the upside or to the downside. So it's no surprise that it really gets mentioned a ton. But this had news that they basically found an auditor, and we talked about that. What was the driving variable that was taking SMCI down? And that is that if they can't get an auditor or someone to verify their financials, they will get delisted from all the exchanges and basically go down to the OTC market. So they were able to get an auditor to basically at least look at their books. Now, that doesn't mean that their auditor is going to be all good and that their financials are all good. It just means that you have someone now taking a fresh look at it, and then they will decide. So we have seen a ton of squeeze out in SMCI, and now we're getting to a point where it's back to, the levels when they announced that basically their auditor dropped out. And so as we have that squeeze out and we get up to, the 35-40 range, now it becomes a question of what does the new auditor actually find? And that will be, potentially a huge another short opportunity if they find something wrong. So keep that on watch. But if not, then this will probably drift back up to the levels of, whatever is a fair value for a stock in this sector, making whatever money that they are. And now the next, kind of not necessarily individual stock, but kind of theme I want to talk about is like, the quantum computing theme has been hot. And I just want to discuss, how to really prepare for these themes or to capitalize on them, whether that's on the long side with swings, and then keeping them on watch if you want to short them at some point, or, some of the names have options on them too. So kind of the thought process is that you have these themes or sectors that group together. So you have some kind of a narrative, especially in retail crowded markets where you have a lot of retail long people. What they're looking at is what is a theme that makes sense, or a sub theme. So it could be something with AI, and then that could branch out into something else, maybe the power side of AI. And we've seen that with like some of the nuclear stocks. And then you could have the quantum computing kind of angle with stuff. So, you have some kind of narrative, some kind of theme, and then you have all the companies that are basically trying to piggyback on top of that. So anything with quantum in the name is running with these. But basically a good way to prepare for some of these is to, either using the internet or other people's watch lists or anything, just start to build the basket. And so what I mean by that is try to find the top, 5, 10, 15 companies in a particular sector, and then just pull them all up, have them on a watch list, have them on, an easy to access thing where you can see, okay, quantum stocks are up today, and you could have, 5 or 10 of them that are all up over, 10, 15%. And then you can look for the relative strength or the relative weakness. And then As you kind of build that list, you can kind of go through, do a little bit of fundamental analysis, which ones have cash, which ones actually have a product, which ones are doing something. And then you can kind of establish like the leaders. And then from there, you can kind of go down to the second tier of what are the companies that are just running because it has it in the name. What needs to raise money, what's just, putting out a PR to capitalize on it. And you can kind of build like the second tier, and then you'll get down to like, the super tiny stocks that are running for one day, or like they'll change their name or they'll change their theme to kind of fit the quantum theme. So it's just a good idea to kind of, research a couple of the top companies, make a list of that. And then basically, as long as these stocks are all trending together, that shows you that the theme is in play. And a lot of times you'll be able to find things like we talked about with those trend lines, where you have a particular theme and like a stage of that theme in play. And so like right now you could see that the variance here, it's much greater than it was down here and at other points. So, just want to focus on what part of the cycle are you in. And then also anytime something has a press release or breaking news, take note of, is that actually moving the stock? And then, trying to find any other variable that works with that. But I'll just run through a couple of names so you can kind of see, this theme has been very in play. And, we talk about going with the path of least resistance. And so for some swing traders or some people, especially if you get in on a dip or early, you can ride these for a while and get some good trades if you go after the high quality names to maybe swing, and then keep an eye on the other names to either short or, looking for a sector turn. So QBTS, ARQQ, these are all just different, quantum names or quantum theme names, allegedly. Most of them, probably are not actually doing much, but, they're running with the theme. But these are just good names to have on watch and to build baskets. And this doesn't just apply to the quantum stocks. Again, it's not about the particular name, the particular theme. It's about the concept of it. And then you can apply that to anything. You can apply it to the nuclear power names, or, the sales as a software kind of names, or basically any kind of theme that comes together and runs for a while. And that's kind of the process of building up a watch list or building up a basket. And then over time, you'll accumulate these baskets of stocks, and you have immediate go-tos when something's running. So if the weed stocks are running, or if the crypto stocks are running, or if the quantum stocks, it helps, instead of trying to just look at an individual stock on its own, look at it with its group, with its context, and you'll get a much better read. So that way, if all the quantum names are going, you're not trying to short IONQ just because, technically that one looks a little bit different, but the rest of the theme, money's flowing into it. So it can save you a lot of headaches. And then I'll give an example. These are just some more quantum names that you could, potentially add to a watch list for that theme. And so, like using another example, it's the same thing with the small nuclear power companies. So you have AI, you have a theme, and then you have a sub theme with the nuclear stocks. They need a lot of energy, and so you have things like SMR, OKLO. And you have that same process where you can just find what are the top 5, or 10 companies, do a little bit of research on them, see what's the leader, what actually has some kind of merit to it or product. And as long as that theme's hot, that's usually the leader. So now, like, it's SMR would clearly be that role. And again, looking at, what is the variance of that trend and what stage is it in, where it's like you had much smaller variance and now you're in a stage where it has much larger variance. And so it can help you, if you were to draw those trend lines, or just kind of know what is the average range for a day, for a week, or anything. There's a lot of ways to track that. Some people use ADRs or, some equivalent to that, but I am a big fan of just kind of loose trend lines to see what part of the cycle are we in. And then once you start to have something like, we use the example of MSTR, if you have those trend lines on there and you have something that's starting to really speed up and enter like a new trend, then you'll typically have a situation where you have a mean reversion trade kind of coming. So you can just use that to take all these concepts together and track these sectors, track the moves, track the cycle or the part of the cycle that they're in, and then use that to either, accumulate long if that's your style, or if people are swinging it, or if they're waiting for that mean reversion trade on the short side, or whether it's with options or whatever people prefer. And then you can use that same strategy on the downside. So the China names have made, almost a full round trip. And this is something that we talked about. And I have I've done a lot of work on the China names. I follow that sector. I follow the economic stuff going on over there. And we just talked about how China is just a horrible environment for capital to basically go to. It's a communist government. They've loosened up a little bit over the years, but it's very different than a Western market, and so you can't use the same valuation metrics. You can't use the same kind of like concepts that you would like following an Nvidia or following like a Berkshire Hathaway. You can't use that same playbook in a different economy with different rules. It's not the same. And so, this was a stimulus-driven move, and then that stimulus was basically puttering out, and the government over there is not all about, swamping the market in liquidity. And so you just have bad fundamentals, a difficult government system, and then you just had this big unwind trade. But it's the same concept of using those themes, those sectors, look at the top 10 companies, and then see when they're moving, and you can see all the China stocks, are trading in tandem. So that's like a way that you can, ride it on the way up. You can see if all the stocks are moving. And then as that theme kind of turns, looking at the key driving variables, and as they unwind, again, looking at what part of like the cycle are they in, and you can use that to help with trend lines and looking at, what is the average range that you should be looking at for these trends as they unwind. So it's just hugely helpful to be able to think about themes, trends, and know that process of building watch lists, building baskets, and, just understanding what are they likely to do, understanding the key driving variables, and then, watching them as they trade together, because, these all have the same charts pretty much. Okay, and now just, I will have the quantum names on watch going into next week, but I'm just going to touch on a couple of different names. Against a short week, we don't know if it's going to be, liquidity dries up and, the market just kind of stalls out until the following week, or if we have a couple of crazy runners, or we don't know what's going to happen, but I'm definitely watching Tesla for its next leg up. We've seen a couple of times these big runs, the consolidation. Now it's tightening up and starting to break out again. So we could have that move, over 400 coming in the next week or a couple of weeks. So Tesla will be on watch for me on the long side, especially unless it starts to, it gets news and it starts to peak out and get heavy, and then you could switch your bias. But for now, it's a long bias. And then DDOG, kind of that sales as a software business model. A lot of those names are perking. A lot of them had good earnings. And so DDOG is just a good example of what a lot of these charts will look like. So again, finding, the top 5-10 names in the sector, and then having those on watch, building a watch list, building a basket, and then, looking for them to basically play as they're running. And then as they start to speed up from their trend, switching your bias to a mean reversion trade. So DDOG, I think it could still have some upside in it, but you can see that obviously this is forming a new trend. And so once it starts to speed up from that new trend, then it'll switch to a mean reversion bias for me. And then Coin, at some point, Trump and Brian Armstrong, who is the CEO of Coin, are supposed to have a meeting. And, we don't know if they're going to talk about the strategic reserve, whatever, kind of concepts are getting talked about. But Coin should have some good range in its near future. And especially if that meeting happens, or if it's anticipating that meeting, that'll probably have a big run up into that, unless Bitcoin or the alt cycle kind of turns and we have a big correction, because crypto's been hot for a while, and a lot of times around big weeks or big things that people are anticipating, they tend to have some kind of correction or turn or mean reversion trade. And so we'll see, because a lot of times crypto runs into like that Thanksgiving week and weekend. And then after that, maybe we get a big, kind of correction. And then again, using the thematic approach and looking at the basket of stocks, you could potentially have a huge mean reversion trade coming in a lot of these names. And then finally, mRNA. This has been on watch for downside for a long time. They had some positive news, or someone, put out a positive note on it on, I think, Thursday or Friday. So you had a nice pop. But again, this is still in a large downtrend. So I'll be seeing if this stays heavy into next week or, throughout the end of the year. So those are really the names that I want to touch on for the week. We talked about, the master trade, or MSTR, and a lot of like the thematic approaches, or how to basically build a basket, how to keep things on watch, understanding the parts of the cycle, and then watching that basket move up, and then looking for the key driving variables, and then for that unwind when it eventually comes. So that's basically all I have for this week. And again, check out these Black Friday deals. It's going to be the best pricing, the best time to actually get in and just, make the plunge and try something different, especially if, your trading's been choppy or something's not been working. go to a place where people can help you with that and, help you to learn and develop. And it's not, it's not a copy trade service. We're not just, trying to get people to buy alerts or do anything like that. We want people to understand how to be, professional quality traders, how to understand these things and put them into practice. And you have an entire community that is, welcoming and preparing people to do that and to really help them along their journey. So definitely check out those Black Friday deals. And then soon we will also have some Cyber Monday deals. And we hope to see everyone there and in the room. So have a great week, guys. And then the final note is that we've also been doing some free content. We've been publishing a couple of the morning broadcasts, and then we also did a live Twitter Spaces that was recorded, and we might do some more of those in the future. So make sure that you also check out that content. And we have a new Trading Takes episode that just dropped about hyper scalping. So that's a very fascinating topic. So check out all the Investors Underground topics, and we will see you in the room. And I hope that everyone has a great upcoming holiday. Take care.